Hi everyone, welcome. My name's Andrea. I am a special education teacher and I'm also a brain gym instructor and the author creator of the program Movement for Miracles, where I teach parents and educators how to address the root cause of learning challenges that are social, emotional, and academic. Today, I am sharing an interview that I had the pleasure to do with a colleague, Stephanie Johnson, and she is a developmental movement therapist. And what we talk about are the little known secrets that everybody needs to know that underlie learning challenges, challenges that are social, emotional, and academic for kids. There's one key, and we share that in this video today. So if you don't know Stephanie, Stephanie is a developmental movement therapist. Stephanie is also an author. She wrote the book Baby Bear. I'll put information about her website and book below. And she also has training programs for educators and parents that are used worldwide. So this is a really exciting interview. And again, we share a secret that everybody needs to know in supporting kids to overcome learning challenges. Make sure if you know someone who could benefit from the information, share. Enjoy. All right. Welcome, Stephanie. Thank you so much for coming on to do this interview. This year in 2021, my goal is to really educate parents and educators and therapists on the importance of movement, and the type of work you're doing is really changing lives and so important. So just to dive right in, would you be able to tell us an example of a real life person that you were able to support with your work and the differences that it made for that child?
I guess of a family that comes to mind is a mom named Sharon. So mom named Sharon came to me, and when she came up to my office, her posture was like this, and she's telling me about her child who, they just had the fall conferences for her child Eli, who's in second grade, and she was pretty bummed out and pretty confused about what the teacher said. She hadn't noticed these things about her child Eli, and the things were said were, he's not reading at grade level, kind of needs to be told 6,000 times a day to sit still or get back in your chair. Not really forming any cohesive relationships, not getting invited to a lot of play dates or birthday parties, kind of, on the periphery of the social scene out on the playground. And this was really concerning Sharon and her husband. So fast forward 6 months to spring conferences, and now she's sitting in my office kind of more like this. Now, of course, we live in Minnesota, so everyone's kind of like this in the spring. But she really had new life in her. And she said, wow, we just had conferences a few weeks ago, and Eli's teacher said that he's right in the mix with everyone out on the playground. He's running around with his little posse of friends, like in a little pack. He's feeling more confident. His reading has gone up 3 grade levels. So she felt great about that. And most importantly, he's getting invited to birthday parties, and that always feels good as a parent and a child. And now the teacher only has to tell him about 5 times a day versus 6,000 times a day to, kind of get focused, sit back in your chair. And so what happened in those 6 months, a lot of people would really jump to the conclusion, right, that, oh, he must have had a lot of tutoring. I bet he really hit the books and got his reading scores up, or, oh, I bet maybe he had a special helper at school who walked him along, or maybe he took some social skills class and learned about eye contact. And all of those things would have been really helpful. But actually what I did with Eli is I revisited movement patterns that our bodies naturally go through from conception to walking when we're infants. So this model of developmental movement therapy, we were able to go back and repeat and complete old movement patterns that weren't complete as an infant for whatever reason. We were able to integrate primitive reflexes, and the model we used is really all movement. I can't give prescriptions, so there's no medicine given for his attention. And it was all just movement. And And to the child, it really just looks like play, right? So in 6 months, Eli's confidence and skills had built, but we never really had to, point out to him that, hey, you're not reading at grade level, or we'd like to see you have more friends. Let's talk about that. There's none of that put on him. So his self-confidence remained high, and we just had fun in a really smart therapeutic movement way to get those results for that family. And that's a pretty common story with the families that come see me, Sharon and Eli.
That's amazing. And I teach in the schools,
Oh.
and I also use movement. I think I'm very rare in the school system,
Mhm.
and have experienced these wonderful have witnessed wonderful transformations with kids, where I have the same kind of thing, like, were you using a special program? And it's the movement specific, not just random. But I'm
Yeah.
also curious, uh you know I'm curious. I have kids and I'm a teacher, and I'm curious about your program. Is it a unique program to you that you use? And how often were you seeing this child?
So great question. So I'll start with the easy question. I started seeing Eli twice a week, and that's what I typically do in my practice, especially for kids as young as second grade. Twice a week for about 3 to 4 months, and then we kind of reassess and we go down to once a week. But the key is that parents have some home play activities that I send home. They're usually fun, easy to do, aren't going to make anyone crabby, aren't going to make anyone, tax a schedule or a home routine. It's small and doable, but it is really important to do those in between the weekly sessions. And then in terms of my program, gosh, it's yes, it's something I've put together, but from all kinds of other programs. So I have training in reflex integration and RMT, Muscatova method, and I have a background in somatic psychology. I was a dance educator in the public schools for many years. So I feel like it all falls under the umbrella of developmental movement therapy. And I just pull from things that I have learned over the 20 plus years working with families and, professional development, and just kind of being a constant curious learner. And so if I have this big toolbox of all these different modalities, and then it's really just about getting to know a child and a family to see which ones are going to be most impactful with them.
What is the one thing you wish more parents understood?
Normalizing and relieving parents' feelings of guilt and that they must have done something incorrectly, or they should do something differently would be one. And then the other is just to be thinking about these symptoms as a disorganized nervous system. And since we know that the nervous system organizes through movement, right? The movement of an infant is hardwiring the nervous system for every future cognitive and emotional pursuit. So if we revisit the movement piece, we're not just giving strategies, right? Like coping mechanisms. We are actually rewiring and organizing the nervous system so that children can feel more comfortable and have joy and ease in their body and bring their gifts to the world with much more ease.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. It's like you're going to the core,
Yeah.
and not just trying to band-aid it, and which we see a lot.
But we also see a lot of parents and well-meaning teachers thinking, well, he just needs to apply himself, because it's tricky. The children I see are so bright, right? They've got such cognitive capacity, but it's the physical mechanics of the body that aren't supporting that, right? Help her hand, move her hand. Doesn't matter how big your vocabulary is if you're having trouble with the physical mechanics of expressing the learning. And so this notion that smart kids just need to try harder or apply themselves, that just breaks my heart to hear that, because often those children are trying much harder, right? Because they're working with kind of a unorganized system.
You touched on this a little bit, and I just wanted to revisit it. You said, for whatever reason, in this patterns of movement, something didn't integrate. So why? What could be a reason for that?
Yeah, so I kind of have a policy of thinking of that question as a pretty slippery slope, because A, we don't know for sure the reason. And B, it really invites a lot of guilt for parents. So, but what I will say is that there are a few common culprits, right? And although in each family we never really know, but there are a few, and kind of the easiest to digest is children not having access to unrestricted movement as infants. So the easy one to understand is that brains and bodies develop through the movement, and we're not actually offering children as much movement as they need in those first about 18 months of life, right? So from conception to walking is this prime window where all this automatic underlying mechanics of learning actually is. Horizontal eye tracking, stabilizing the lower body so I can express the upper. We talked about helper hand, mover hand, crossing the midline. All of this is hardwired via the movement on the floor. And what we know about American infants is that they are actually in a car seat 600 hours for the first year of their life. That's just the car seat alone. And that's not just for driving, right? So I know that people are always like, oh, what do you expect? We're not going to put them in a car seat. No, no, no. I'm saying use the car seat only for driving, of course. But it's 600 hours that they're not wiring their nervous system. So that's kind of a across the board, pretty obvious culprit, considering the sheer volume of children that we're seeing that are disorganized and showing symptoms of behavior and academic, needing some academic support. The other really troubling statistic is like 2/3 of a baby's day is spent in some kind of container of any kind, whether it be the car seat, the jolly jumper. So we've got all these ways to keep the babies from moving, and we know that that's actually what they need to build a robust nervous system. So I'm happy to share that one with you. The other whys get a little, case by case, and they're a little sensitive. But unrestricted movement, definitely a culprit.
With COVID happening, what are you up to these days? How has that changed your model of operation, and what are you doing?
Well, I've been really trying to figure out ways to get the healing movement ideas to more and more families. I can only see so many in my private practice. So this kind of uptick in digital content and getting services out to people has really inspired me. So I have a movement subscription for parents. It's called Healing Movements for Kids. And it's a subscription series that you can get on courses.babybear.net. And that is, each week a new lesson is revealed, and it's all the tried and true therapeutic fun games that I send home as my home play with my personal clients that I see. So that's up and running. And I've also started a remote treatment option, which I had never had before. I'd only always seen people in person, but now I'm doing a remote version, not for locals who are staying home because of COVID, but really because I wanted to extend services to people in rural areas who might not have someone like me around, or people in other countries who just don't have access to this kind of support. So those are the two big things for COVID: a remote treatment plan, and then the movement subscription for parents.
So if people do want to find you, can you outline where to find you and how to find you? And I'll put it in the notes below as well.
Babybear.net, which is sort of the seat of the baby services that I provide. And then sageeducationcenter.com is where the services for older children can be found. And either of those will lead you to the online options, but my online school is courses.babybear.net.
Thank you so much for taking this time today. I really appreciate it. I can't wait to share this. It's going to be great.